Well, we start with that top story where at least 85 more people have been killed by Israeli forces in Gaza on Tuesday alone, with Israel only saying it was going to further intensify its attacks, telling besieged Palestinians in Gaza City to flee, but there is nowhere to go. Israeli bombings and killings reported across the Strip, including in the areas that the Israeli army is telling people to seek shelter. As well as the airstrikes, Palestinians also still being killed through starvation as the Israeli blockade on food and vital supplies continues. At least 60,000 Israeli reservists, meanwhile, were called up to the military as part of a push to fully capture Gaza City, a city already destroyed with markets, schools, hospitals reduced to rubble. Well, recognising what it said was systematic and widespread crimes against humanity, indiscriminate and deliberate attacks against civilians, the International Association of Genocide Scholars says Israel's war on Gaza is genocide, that it meets the legal definition of the crime. Despite the pictures and reports of the destruction and the death toll of over 63,000 Palestinians, that word has nonetheless been debated, no longer for this international body. Well, we can speak to the president of it now to get more insight on it all. Melanie O'Brien, thank you so much for joining us. Can you talk us through firstly how this decision was reached? How did your association study the facts?
Thank you for having me to talk about the resolution. The International Association of Genocide Scholars welcomes resolutions to be submitted by any members of the association. That resolution will then go through a rigorous and extensive peer review process from 3 separate committees before it goes out to vote to our membership. Our membership then vote, and in the case of this resolution, the vast majority of those who voted in this vote voted in favour of the resolution, declaring that Israel's policies and actions in Gaza amount to war crimes, crimes against humanity and genocide.
And what sources did you have in order to come to that decision? What could people study when it comes to that war?
The resolution itself, just to make clear for people, it's not a report in itself, it's a 3-page document, but it was the result of extensive research, and it does include many references to reports that are in themselves extensive, produced by reliable and consistently well-known sources on the issue of human rights in the occupied Palestine territories, including UN entities and non-governmental organisations, including an Israeli non-governmental organisation as well.
Now, it is rare, is it not, or is it just maybe perhaps ignorance on my part, but it's rare to speak out, and notably with the percentage of people that agreed in this case to calling something a genocide. Can you put the significance into context for us?
So as an association, we have passed a number of resolutions in the past. Some of those are about historical genocides, such as the Kurdish genocide or the Armenian genocide, but other ones we have passed on current affairs, including, for example, the genocide of the Uyghurs in China or the genocide of the Rohingya in Myanmar. So it is an association that is very active, with members who are engaged not just in historical research, but also very much involved in current day advocacy and activism. You know, we're scholars, but we also see our role as very important in terms of thinking about the practice of genocide prevention, education and punishment.
So talk us through the crimes that lead to it being validated or legally defining it as a genocide.
So the definition of genocide is found in the Genocide Convention, which defines genocide as a list of crimes that are committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part. So it doesn't have to be the entire population. And that group that is intended to be destroyed has to be a national, ethnical, racial or religious group. And the crimes that are listed, and some of which, most of which we see happening in Gaza at the moment, include killing people of that group, causing them serious bodily or mental harm, inflicting conditions of life designed to bring about their physical destruction, which I think is one of the key things that people have been focusing on in terms of thinking about starvation, the lack of access to healthcare, water, food and shelter. And also another crime that we are seeing is actions designed to prevent birth. So we're seeing attacks on the healthcare system, including fertility clinics and maternity wards.
So now that there is the legal backing, if you like, to say that it is genocide, does this give world leaders more security to finally act when it comes to this war on Gaza?
I do want to say that our resolution is not a legal document. It's a resolution passed by an association of genocide scholars. But what I think is really important about it is that our association is made up of experts in the field. So predominantly academics who work extensively on genocide studies, but also we do have some members that come from different areas such as policymakers or non-governmental organizations or legal professionals, every one of whom in some way works in practice on genocide prevention, education or punishment. And in that regard, I think that this should be useful for governments and that the resolution can be used as a tool to lobby, to advocate to governments, to recognise that what is happening on the ground is genocide. Although at the same time, I also want to reiterate that we also called it war crimes and crimes against humanity. So all of the crimes being committed should be called out by states.
Of course, Israel refutes the word genocide. It refutes the fact that it's committing war crimes. It claims self-defense. I mean, what does your association make of Israel's excuse that there's a few terrorists hiding out among the tens of thousands of civilians being killed?
So speaking as an expert in international law, yes, there is a right to self-defense under international law. And certainly, you know, if you and I were having this conversation on the 8th or 9th of October 2023, for example, I would certainly be saying, yes, the right to self-defense is there. But that does not mean the right to self-defense is unlimited. It does have restrictions. And those restrictions include, for example, that the response must be proportionate, and the response we are seeing is no longer proportionate, with the killing of tens of thousands of civilians and the near complete destruction of the entirety of Gaza. The response also must be according to military necessity, which again, using the same reasons, we are no longer seeing. So it's really important to acknowledge that even the right to self-defense has limitations, and also to remember that there is absolutely no justification, no legal reasoning for the commission of war crimes, crimes against humanity, or genocide.
Melanie O'Brien, President of the International Association of Genocide Scholars, thanks so much for taking time out and speaking to us here on France 24.